Salomon S Lab Pulsar 4 out here today. I'm gonna bring you a two-part review. Kind of liking this setup. I could go through the specs a little bit in the first run, get you set up, take them out for some first impressions, see how they feel. I've actually run the shoe a few times before today, including a bit of a run where I had some 1 minute pickup, so a little bit faster paces. But doing the review in two parts does let me get some of those details kind of out of the way. So when I come back for a second run, likely in different terrain, I can just focus on the running and really talk more about the ride, the feel, all that kind of stuff more in depth when I don't have to worry about forgetting to mention a specification or two that is important. Slight bit of a downhill warm up here. I ran this, I guess, first 6 minutes or so in about 7:15 pace. A little bit downhill from the parking lot. I actually finally got back on the treadmill yesterday, getting back into speed work. Usually the day after that, especially maybe earlier in the day, my legs do feel a little bit springy. I end up running a little bit faster. I don't feel so beat up. Especially if I'm running in a quicker shoe like this. My Garmin watch did just pop up a +4 performance condition after I mentioned my legs feeling springy the day after a workout. I don't know if they factor in elevation in that. A little bit downhill right out of the gate here. So they have to factor that in, right? This area is called Seaman's Gulch. I had to make a trip to the landfill today, which is on the other side of these hills right here. They tuck it away nicely over there. Do get the smell wafting over though. Had to drop off a few old rickety garden beds. Just across the street is this little section of trail here, so thought it might be a good opportunity. Don't often get out here. Check it out. I know it's smoother, so maybe run a little quicker in the Pulsar 4s here. S-Lab version, of course. I love the quick lace system here. They kind of have that webbing type design at the top of the tongue, and the laces come in through the side and just a couple different sections and just tuck it in right away from the top. That seems to be, for me, the best setup for a quick lace garage. Some of those ones where they've just got it right at the top of the tongue, I find that those don't always work that great. Kind of have to pull the tongue up too much. Then it's just a little bit awkward to stuff it in, that kind of. This one, I've seen it mainly in their higher end models, S-Lab models like this one. It just works really well. Easy in, easy out. No problem with the quick lace getting loose or anything like that. I don't know if that has something to do with the garage design, but it may. I am very excited to be testing this latest S-Lab Pulsar model. I haven't run in an S-Lab Pulsar since the OG gray one, the crazy light Killian design model with the tiny lugs, the tiny shallow lugs, I should say. Version 2 was similar to the first one. They had some soft ground models where they upped the lug depth. I know V3 was a bigger update, kind of closer to this one right here, but I just had other stuff going on. Didn't have a chance to get into any of those updates. I've got a US 9.5 here, true to size for me. I typically do go true to size for most Salomon shoes. Occasionally, I'll get a bit of a squeeze, but depends on the scenario. The Aeroglide 3 gravel, plenty spacious, roomy enough in my US 9.5, but I did get some pinky side rubbing in that shoe, so that's just a kind of a fit thing with that one, because the rest of it was pretty roomy and upper kind of loose. So I would not want to go up to a 10 in that one. Just stick with the 9.5 and maybe thinner socks. I do have my Sidus Run Anatomic crew socks here. This is one of their thinnest models. Probably seen this one in the ads with Jim Walmsley and Hayden Hawks. This is an excellent thin sock. With this kind of shoe, the Pulsar 4 here, there's no insole in there. It's very much a secure race style type fit. And I just find, unless you have fit issues where maybe you want to use thicker sock to kind of fill up some upper volume, it's best to wear a thinner sock with this type of shoe so you don't kind of lose the ground feel that the shoe inherently has. So my US 9.5 weighs in at 8.9 ounces, 252 grams. Compared to V1, that's definitely a significant jump. That shoe was pretty crazy, and I think even to this day, it's the lightest trail shoe I've ever run in. Certainly the lightest trail shoe I still have in my sort of rotation, it's still on the shelf. That one was 6.5 ounces, 184 grams, which is incredible and was definitely incredible at the time. There were videos out where Killian was running some pretty serious technical terrain in that shoe. Sierra Zinal in them, the Gamma, these type of Golden Trail type races. I don't know if those shoes, mere mortals could do what he was doing in that shoe. This shoe seems, if anything, a little bit more palatable or runnable for most of the rest of us. So that shoe, definitely significantly lighter, but this shoe significantly more stack height underfoot. I manually measure 34 at the heel. They give a 6 mil drop, so that gives me 34, 28 full stack. I think their spec stack at the heel is like 34 and a half or something, maybe 35. Very close to what I measured. That original gray Pulsar was 26 at the heel, so 26, 18 under the forefoot. That's pretty wild if you think about today's trail running market, even for what you would call speed shoes, but that's where it was back then, especially with Killian leading the design there. Of course, he's since moved on to normal and stack heights of his signature shoe there, the Chirac, is still quite a bit more than that original Pulsar. The midsole foam underfoot, we can talk about that. There's a little bit of a discrepancy in naming, I believe. Let me pull over here and we'll take a closer look. So you've got a 2-layer setup to the midsole here. This top layer closer to the foot, that's the red foam. That is called Energy Foam Plus. But if you look at their website, it actually says OptiFoam Plus. So I don't know what they're doing in the naming. They can't seem to get it together. It clearly says Energy Foam right here on the shoe itself. But if you go to Salomon's website, you may see OptiFoam. So don't know what's going on with that. This top red layer is a PIBA-based EVA blend, so softer, bouncier, more responsive, comfort closer to the foot, similar to what you see in a lot of dual layer setups from other brands. This white layer here is regular Energy Foam. So you've got the Energy Foam Plus, which labeled right there, Energy Foam Plus on the red, PIBA-based EVA blend. Here, this is EVA, no PIBA in the mix on the white one. And as you can see, this midsole does extend up to this kind of wing setup here. Over here comes, this is the lateral side, medial side. It comes up, it's not overly rigid, it kind of cradles the foot, I would say. One thing to note is this Salomon lettering is part of that design. This is a I don't know what this is, a TPU plasticky type of element. This wraps up above that foamy section here, and this is quite rigid. I actually got a comment from somebody I know, somebody I've raced with, and he sent me pictures where he had hacked this off with a razor. He said this was digging into his foot, and this is pretty stiff lettering. I'm pretty surprised when I saw it that it was this stiff and plasticky. I mean, it has to be part of the cradle design. This has to have like functional effect. They wouldn't just put this big, thick, heavy, plasticky lettering here just for show. They could obviously just print it on there. So that is part of the wing design. I guess they want to give you a little more on the lateral side for stability. I don't really know. I think when I was running, I noticed that it does cradle the foot. I don't get any of that rubbing, by the way. Like, I have no issues with this. I could kind of feel it if I really, I guess, think about it. If I hone in on the feel of those wings, I could say, okay, yeah. But it's really very thin. It's just, you know, the midsole comes up here, and then you're talking about, you know, this is the top of the Energy Foam Plus. You're talking about a very small portion right here. Again, this one, I guess it can be problematic. I've seen the pictures, but still, this part's going up a little higher. I have no irritation from any of the edges of these wings, so that's not an issue for me. I did find that, I don't know if it makes the shoe more stable, but it cradles the foot, and when I did kind of, you could roll your ankle in anything, in any shoe, any kind of wings, whatever you want to call it, winglets, this and that, you could still roll your ankle. It's not gonna save you. But I did notice that it tended to cradle my foot and kind of lead me into a lighter ankle roll. So instead of being like bam and a real quick one, I just felt it kind of, I don't know, smoothing out any kind of missteps or anything like that. Maybe for some reason these wings give you an earlier feel when the foot gets out of whack. I don't know how to explain that. That's just kind of the sense that I got on the run. I mean, you could see the platform of the shoe and why it is a speed shoe. Look how narrow it is. I'm not going to put it up against the original Pulsar because that was incredibly narrow under the forefoot, midfoot here. Forefoot is kind of the same, but also incredibly narrow under the rear. That was just completely different. I put a picture up on Instagram and it's quite dramatic. This one here, more of a modern, regular setup that's probably going to work for definitely a wider range of runners. But still, compared to a lot of other shoes, quite streamlined here, not really any overhang. So without having a lot of overhang, say over here, without the platform sticking out, and even in the rear, not a lot of overhang behind the shoe in the rear of the shoe. So in the absence of that overhang, they give you these wings here for a little bit of stability. Matrix upper, of course, I think this is pretty dense. I'm standing here, it's midday, it's pretty hot, and it does feel warm. I did a breathing test on this, trying to blow air through, and it's definitely not as breathable as some other models. It's gonna definitely, with this nice booty setup here, the lace is locked down pretty good. It's very effective at sealing debris out. The collar all around, pretty snug and tight. You have this booty type of tongue. I'll get a close-up later on. But the material itself, again, matrix material, but it just seems to be a tighter weave, less breathable, denser mesh here. So I feel it is a little bit warm, I have to say. Quick check on sizing, US 9.5, definitely not a full thumbs width. I've got maybe 2/3, I would say, not a half. It's not that close. I have enough. But again, this is what I would call a speed shoe, a fast shoe. I want to be dialed in this. I don't think I want that full thumbs width in this shoe. I don't plan on running any, let's say, 50 milers in this, although I did run a 50 miler in that OG Pulsar. Trying to get going a little quicker out of that break there. The shoe feels fast, that's for sure. It feels completely strapped on your foot. The heel hold is excellent. Just the overall foothold, foot security with that quick lace system, that tongue that kind of wraps and envelops over the top of the foot. No separate insole there. It's kind of a insole layer integrated on top of the footbed there. Overall, just very solid and secure fit. What you want to feel once you start picking up the pace and once you start getting into more rugged terrain than this is here. Testing the speed here, feeling them out. My next test run, which you will see shortly, will be in a little bit different terrain. And the one thing about the shoe though is, even though it's a speed shoe, I feel like it could work for a lot of different foot strike patterns. It doesn't feel like it's locked into, say, a forefoot striking pattern. That original OG Pulsar definitely did feel that way, especially with the very narrow platform under the midfoot and the super narrow tail. This one, they've widened it out a bit in the back half of the shoe. That dual density midsole, 2 layers, does seem to work well. Energetic underfoot, but not firm, not harsh. Kind of right there in the middle. Good bit of control with it not being overly bouncy. I tend to be landing, I think, center midfoot here, and just feels very smooth on the run. There's no plate or anything in this shoe. They mentioned there's a Profeel film, which is in a lot of Salomon's trail shoes. That serves as really just a kind of mesh to filter out any really hard rock hits. Maybe prevent you from getting the super sharp points of the rocks, but it's not really gonna blunt major impacts. Shape of the shoe is really good. I like the width in the forefoot. It's at a level that, yes, don't get me wrong, it is a race type fit. Can't avoid that, but with the matrix material, I feel like it's at a width that you can work with. If I really wanted to dial it down, I could snug down that lower section there of laces, but perhaps on a moderate day like today, no crazy downhills, I would leave that few, 1 or 2 rows at the bottom of the shoe a little bit looser, allow a little bit more movement in the foot, not movement side to side, but a little more expansion at the ball of the foot, absorption of impact without it really hindering foothold. Again, that's why I really like matrix uppers. You can leave that lower area of laces looser for comfort, but the upper, the matrix material itself, doesn't flex and stretch. It still holds the foot well, even if you want to have it a tad looser. I am zigzagging back and forth today because I'm on a little time schedule here, and I know I'm gonna do another test run, which is coming up shortly. Please stay tuned in for probably some more exciting running. We'll see. I haven't exactly picked my route yet. I am also testing some new sunglasses here from Shady Rays. They sent me a couple different pairs to try out. They're both polarized glasses, high quality. They seem to be, construction seems really good and not super high priced like some of the big name sunglass brands. This red frame here, definitely a little bit racy for my taste. Maybe not for casual use, but out on the trails, I am wearing bright red shoes out here today, so anything goes, okay? I am matching at least. A little bit of a short final descent here before I take you out with me on another test run. Please don't touch that dial. We're gonna hit up some more fun stuff, and I'm gonna push these S-Lab Pulsar 4s just a little bit more. Quick look at this upper here at the end of this first run. I know some have mentioned some bunching issues at the tongue. Seems to be a little bit more on my left foot. Again, this is not really dropping the upper part of the tongue below anywhere where I would get lace bite. I don't feel lace bite anywhere in the shoe. Less bunching in this shoe right here. Don't particularly know why. I will say that in my previous test runs and this one here, it does seem to kind of settle into this position, and then it doesn't move anymore after that. So it's really, at least for me, a non-issue. If you maybe have a higher volume foot, maybe in this area or here, maybe you wouldn't get this bunching. If you have a narrower foot, you probably might get that bunching. Hard to say, but again, it seems to settle here and not move at all, and it's not anything that I feel at all. So really, for me, not a problem. We're back. Another test run here. This one's gonna be a little bit more distance focused. I'm looking at probably 18 to 20 miles today. I've got a little over 30 test miles in this shoe. So after today, should be in the range of 50 to 55. No more specs talk, just feel, impressions, ride on the run. I know this is a quick shoe. I know this is a fast, probably more speed-oriented option, even though it is moving into a mid-range stack here with V4. I picked up the pace earlier. Also mentioned I did run some 1-minute pickups in this shoe earlier. Not concerned with speed in this shoe, but I do want to get a handle on kind of how far I feel like I could take it. Maybe other runners could take it in terms of distance or duration. Do we have a half marathon shoe here? Marathon, 50K, even beyond? It's quite an interesting shoe here because it does bear the coveted S-Lab badge. The Pulsar, specifically well known as a speedster, short distance trail racing shoe. But now that they've beefed it up a bit here in this version, does that make it, say, a 50K option for a wide range of trail terrain and conditions? And I'm not just talking about for pro runners here. Of course, they can run this shoe and previous versions a little bit more than us mere mortals. The fact that I am taking this shoe out for 20 miler today, that at least demonstrates that I do think it's a viable shoe for this type of distance. Quick kit check for a long run. Got the Fractal Velocity t-shirt here. Love this one. Love the kind of low neck here. Seems to get a little more air around my collarbone. I like that. Fractal M series hat. They sent me a bunch of stuff. This is the one that fits in, I don't know, just like the design the most out of their little care package. Bole Victus Pro shades. Got mixed sunning clouds and shade throughout this run, so this is a no-brainer. Also the Kalos Fuga Air 8 here. Got a lot of stuff loaded up, including the bladder, including one of their bottles, fuel, hydration, camera stuff. This is a really awesome vest. Loving this so far. Kip Run shorts here. Kip Run / Decathlon. I'm not sure how they brand that. It's kind of a basic short, black 2-in-1. My first run in them, they felt comfortable around the house, so I figured I'd give them a shot. You always need a basic black short in your drawer. And if it works good, just buy 3 or 4, trust me, because they will change. They'll remove a liner that you love or do something funny. So this one could be a great option for that inexpensive, lightweight, basic short. Probably the most pertinent piece of kit here, at least in regards to this shoe review here, is the side of socks here. This is their Trail Ultra model. Has a double grip band, one at the front and one at the rear of the shoe. And there was a steep section in my run 2 days ago, steep downhill, and I could feel that kind of grip area, especially the one in the back, just in front of the heel. I could feel that kind of grabbing the inside of the sock against my foot, and then the outside of the sock against the insoleless bottom footbed of the shoe here. So keep an eye out for maybe a full sock roundup, but in the meantime, probably noticed a lot of Sidus models in my videos. As I'm working and winding my way up this climb here, the uphill flexibility of the shoe is just spectacular. No plate in the mix, easy, smooth flex climbing. Got that Profil film, but it doesn't interfere at all. It's just a really great, moderate, rolling, and even steep uphill kind of shoe. Yes, there may be, lighter, quicker shoes if you're talking about going purely uphill, VK, and some such situations. Maybe Scott, Scarpa, certainly Merrell Skyfire too. But if you do have to go back down at some point, that extra cushion with this shoe here is probably going to be a little bit more comfortable than some of those other models. The Energy Foam combo underfoot here, really great for climbing as well. It's not overly soft, not overly squishy. Don't feel like I'm losing any of that energy into the midsole. It does feel, especially in parts when I can really, maybe later grades, more so run and incline, does feel like quite a bit of response underfoot there. I'm not dispersing a lot of energy into, say, a wider base or a softer foam. All right, we're starting to break into a steep little descent here. Ooh, a little bit of rocks. That should be fun to test. Very agile here, of course. I know where my foot is underneath me on the ground. And of course, if I catch one of these the wrong way, I could always roll my ankle. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I have a good sense about them. So I feel confident actually picking up my feet and letting my legs go as I come down here. Profil film must be doing something here, because definitely not missing all of these rocks, and I haven't had a sharp hit yet. Seems to kind of be at least rolling over some of these edges pretty decently. I mean, as well as you could expect from this type of shoe. Gonna have a wet test later on. Poles would have been really helpful over here. I will be doubling back on this section, so should be an interesting descent. This is a little bit more off trail than I thought I would be. I don't think this is the ideal shoe for this, but it's certainly capable. Maybe something like the Scarpa Spin Ultra 2, or maybe the Norvin LD4 from Arc'teryx. Those could be potentially better options coming through this kind of stuff. Huh. All right, here we go. Back on track. This way. Well, if that's not a solid downhill test, I don't know what is. I did get some debris into both shoes there. You could see they look a little brown. They kind of change colors on me. Outside of having an integrated gaiter or, you know, adding on a gaiter, that kind of stuff, I was just completely skidding down there, dry dirt. Stuff is going to get into any shoe, so I do not hold that against the Pulsar 4 here. Maybe I'll get a little rinse right here. At least cool the feet off. Now that they're kind of wet and shiny coming out of that stream here, they're actually reminding me of that S-Lab Ultra 2, one of the first ones. I think Courtney ran in that one for a while. It's not the same shoe though. That shoe, I'm not sure. I think I had it, but I don't remember. It was wider, felt firmer. I don't think it had as good foot security and foothold as this one. This one, it feels very secure, kind of rolling with the rocks underneath your foot. Talked about those stability wings or whatever, extensions of the midsole in the first part of the video. They kind of cradle your foot, and I find they just guide you ever so slightly, maybe give you a little extra feedback as to when a roll is starting or when a tilt of your foot is coming into play. I don't know, it's just a kind of a feel thing, which I notice and I kind of like. I feel my foot, of course, running through that kind of stuff, and up ahead here, I feel it kind of tilting as I go, but I don't feel like a quick bang, like turn or roll, really. And certainly there was prime opportunity for it. Could be just luck. One thing I'm noticing as I roll up and down these rocky parts, it's definitely snug race type fit. Some may find that a little squeezy in the toe box. Again, I find it hits my kind of medium width forefoot just right. I loosened the lower laces just a touch, and that works perfectly for me. At the front of the toe box, maybe on the big toe side, you may experience some kind of rubbing there. It is a narrow shoe. It's not an Ultra or a Topo. If you want that precise foot placement, precise feel, you can't really keep the toe box that wide, especially at the very front. One thing they did to mitigate that is on the interior of the shoe, there's these little white patches on the big toe side and the pinky toe side, and they're kind of like Ango patches. I've talked about this in other reviews, probably Q&As, kind of like a little anti-friction sticker that you can put on a hot spot pretty much anywhere. Sometimes I put them on the insoles of my shoe, especially under the big toe, or if I get kind of edge rubbing on the inside ball of my foot or inside edge of my big toe, I'll stick one of those blue slippery Ango patches on the inside, and that will help a lot. So they have those inside this shoe built in. I think they kind of realize, and I guess over the iterations of, you know, generally having narrow shoes, Salomon here, maybe some people are having that issue, and just throwing those little patches in there may mitigate it for a good amount of runners, good enough to, you know, alleviate a lot of people's concerns at least. Made the turn here, heading for final long descent, end of my run here. That's where you'll notice a lot of times firmness of the shoe come into play. Feel nice and springy and fresh in the beginning. Then you go up and over and back, across a couple summits, peaks, technical parts, and then, you know, towards the end you may notice, oh wait, my legs don't feel so great. Not the case here though. The S-Lab Pulsar 4 really treating my legs good and my feet good. Actually, I feel pretty protected. My feet feel fine. I don't feel banged up at all. Just past 2 hours. What am I? 12 or 13 miles in, something like that. And just rolling back down. So I think as far as being a mid-distance shoe racer, certainly half marathon, I mean, I already passed half so far and I feel fine. So marathon is definitely not out of the question. I mean, definitely will be fine for a marathon. Even, I think I'm pretty confident in saying that this would be a great 50K shoe for a lot of runners. As long as you're okay with, you know, not having a huge amount of cushion for that. But if you're already thinking about the shoe for, say, 50K, you probably know that. Could you go longer than that? Yeah, probably. I'm not exactly sure how far Salomon pros have been racing in the shoe. If you know, let me know down in the comments. Maybe a few of them have done 50 milers or 100Ks, 100 mile. I don't know. That is something for me. It came up, people asking questions about the Norda 005, and that's something I kind of want to work my way up to. Being able to run lighter shoes for longer distances, and that just comes down to building foot strength and actually running longer training runs in those types of shoes. I typically just, probably like most people, default to the high cushion shoe for the long run just because that's what you're supposed to do. But I don't know, I would love it if I could handle, say, a sub 9 ounce shoe for very long races. The efficiency of that lower weight is definitely helpful. There's no debating that. But if you're not used to it, you're not used to it. If you run all your long runs in cushion shoes, guilty, myself included, yeah, you're just not going to be prepared to run this or something like the 005 for 100K or 100 miles. So that begs the question, could this shoe be an everyday trainer possibly? I know a lot of people lament the fact that everything is high stack these days, so I would say, yeah, this could be a great everyday trainer if you could maybe get it at the right price. It's not quite in the $250 range, and I may have seen a good sale here or there. If I did find it, check the description below. But shoes like the Merrell Long Sky, I think, are comparable in terms of giving you that non-high stack feel that you might like as an everyday trainer if that is your running style and preference. And this shoe certainly slots in that range. I'm working my way through some wet testing here. I mentioned the upper being a little bit thick, a tighter weave there, potentially less breathable, but it doesn't seem to be affecting drainage. These seem to be drying out, draining out very quickly. There's not really much of a bathtub effect aside from those wings, and of course you have the integrated footbed, so you don't have a separate insole where kind of you feel that water squishing around under there. Maybe takes a little longer for it to kind of work its way outside of the shoe. It seems to, within a minute or a couple minutes or so, evacuate out of the shoe pretty quickly. And aside from noticing, wet socks, which is normal, I don't feel any water sloshing around at all. So good in the wet here. This one's dry. Final thoughts, I have really enjoyed running and testing the S-Lab Pulsar 4 here. It kind of surprised me. I thought of it more based on previous versions as a really fast speed racing shoe, and thinking of it now, certainly still could be that short distance speedster that you want to have, but it certainly does have range in the middle distance. I think you'll be surprised. 34 under the heel, 28 under the forefoot. When you first get running in it, it may seem like it's not super plush, kind of a firmish ride. That's just because the foam itself is not super squishy, doesn't have the high volume, the flare outs, the heel, all that kind of stuff. There's just not that volume of foam underfoot to kind of disperse impact, and I find there's not all that volume to disperse force through or have to work your force through. Really helps you maintain that speed because you're not losing any of that power to a higher volume of foam. I feel like it's more directly getting into the ground, which is nice. So I would probably slot this clearly as a mid-range shoe, with the sweet spot being marathon to 50K, and certainly a lot of range to go faster, half marathon, that kind of thing, 20K race, or shorter, faster races, depending on what type of runner you are. And also there's range to go longer. Certainly if you're a lighter weight runner or a more efficient runner and you like this kind of all business feel underfoot, no crazy plate action, no crazy squish or excessive reactivity, let's say. There's reactivity, but not getting that bounce, that kind of ramp that's shooting you off somewhere maybe you don't want to go, certainly in technical terrain. So yeah, if you're lighter, more efficient, there's range to take this shoe further and longer. Again, thank you for watching and following along with me on another two-part review here. I think it was certainly appropriate in this shoe to mix in that faster runnable stuff with the more rugged mountain terrain. This is certainly a kind of a do-it-all shoe, I would say. If I didn't cover anything or I missed some type of terrain that you may be interested in over the course of these two test runs here, of course, let me know down in the comments. As usual, comparisons, let me know. This is not the last you'll see of this shoe. I have a couple of short to mid-range race options coming up in the next month, and I think this will be the pick for at least one of those races. We'll see. May have to do some A/B comparisons just to kind of dial in my thoughts and racing pick there. Not the last you'll see of this one. Thank you for watching. Check out www.humblerunning.com. Again, take a look down in the description. I saw a really good deal on this shoe. If I find it, I'm going to put it down there. Otherwise, I've got my normal affiliate links down there. Links to related videos and content always in the description. So please, always just browse through the description. You know, give it a look-see. You may come across something interesting, something you haven't seen before on the channel. So again, thank you for watching. Have a nice day. Hope you get to have a great day out on the trails as I have today. See you in the next one.